where time meets style. All right, welcome to Time Meets Style. Very excited to welcome our guest, Jeany Zhao. Jeany, welcome, and thank you for joining Time Meets Style.
Thanks, Eric. Pleasure to be on here. Having a great time so far.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining. I think you have an incredible background. I'm actually really excited to introduce you here. So you are a multifaceted entrepreneur. So you've got corporate experience, and then you've got this experience starting your own ventures. Some of the ones in your background, you've got the Athena Consulting. So you provide diverse services from data analytics and branding marketing to business strategy and ops and tech solutions. You've also got ZK Performance, which sells scratchless car detail and nanotech metal lubricant. And of course, we're here today because you were responsible for helping to bring GrandPrix Originals to the US, which is really cool. And GrandPrix Originals US is a luxury racing lifestyle shoe and apparel company that you brought to the US, again, with a couple of partners. And along the same lines, and in general, you're deeply engaged in motorsports in the racing industry. You're a proficient automotive rider as well. And as if that weren't enough for one person, you also hold a certificate as a mediator and a hypnotherapist. And this is my first question for you, Jeany. The last one is really wild to me as I was getting to know you a little bit. Hypnotherapist. So with all that you have going on, like, why hypnotherapy? And what does that do in terms of everything that you're also involved in?
Oh, gosh. First of all, thank you so much for the very detailed intro. Some people might call that all over the place, jack of all trades. I just am passionate about a lot of stuff, actually, and it ends up just kind of being all over the place. That's true. But every single one of them I deeply connect with. I have a rule in my life where I don't work with people I don't like, and I don't do things that I don't feel truly passionate about. So, and that's served me well my whole life. But I guess I have a lot of interest, so that's where it leads me to do a lot of different things. On the hypnotherapy side, I got started, very interested in it because I felt like, especially through COVID, a lot of people seem to have a lot of anxiety. And I would say even in, if you look at politically, if you look at just generally out there, everyone is feeling a lot of anger and rage, I feel like, these days, and anxiety. And I know that a lot of it is kind of at your own self-court. Yes, there's a lot of things out there in the environment that cause that, but the most important thing is to have that balance and security at your core. And that's what a lot of people, I think, are hoping to have. And I've come across a lot of people, even in my past history, I've done a lot of mentorship both at work and with, general guidance, kind of counseling type stuff in my past before as well. So I really enjoy talking to people. For me, it's just a conversation and helping understand where are people coming from, and there's tends to be a lot of fear and insecurity out there. I think that leads people to act out a certain way. And what I really loved about hypnotherapy, having taken a course on it on a place called Mind Valley, which I take a lot of classes on, it's by a woman named Marissa Peer. It's called Rapid Transformational Therapy. And the idea behind it is that a lot of times people say therapy, especially kind of talk therapy, takes a long time, right? And I feel like the hypnotherapy really addresses it from a, hi, Rocco. It's Rocco in the back, addresses things at a more subconscious level, because the subconscious level is just so much stronger than our conscious level. And it's meant to resolve a lot of internal issues much more quickly than a lot of other methods. And I really am the type of person to feel like if you're going to try to solve a problem, solve it at its core, not just, the symptoms. So that's something that I think has worked really well. I've, done some sessions with people, and it's just been really incredible to see the changes in people. goal.
The way that you describe it is very interesting to me. Hear a lot about medicine, and medicine primarily kind of like covers up the symptom. It doesn't necessarily get at the core of the problem like Western medicine, and more of kind of like the Eastern medicine approach is really trying to get at the core cause, as opposed to covering up whatever the ultimate symptom is that you're feeling. And I love that you're thinking about hypnotherapy as a way to get at the core of the issues and ultimately like maybe resolve it a little bit faster through the subconscious healing. I think that's super cool and really interesting. So thanks for sharing that. Appreciate it.
Thanks. It's been a really interesting journey so far, for sure.
I bet. And obviously you alluded to this, and as you kind of reflected on my introduction, your biggest challenge, no doubt, is managing time and giving attention to everything, right? So,
Absolutely.
I bet like I'm a tech sales guy. Like I've got a full-time day job. I'm kind of doing this Timely Souls thing on the side. I'm a husband. I'm a dad. All that type of stuff. What's your advice to me and other entrepreneurs, super busy people out there about how to manage it all?
I think the key thing is to really know what it is you want. This is actually something I really struggle with a lot, and I've been seeking out a lot of guidance on myself. I mean, I'm always learning. I'm by no means, got things down. I'm always learning, always trying to figure out a way to do things better. And, this has definitely been a struggle for me in the past because I have so many things I'm interested in. And I suspect, a lot of the, most interesting people out there, a lot of my friends do multiple things. And I think it's about really understanding yourself. That's the key thing. Understand what your goals are. And you have to think about everything that you're doing. Is it walking you closer to your goal or walking you away from it? And understand what are the most important priorities. So I think prioritizing is really going to be, a key. And so, for instance, but also look, further vision, right? Not just what's in front of you, not just what's my task for the day, but in looking at what should my tasks be for the day. Is this accomplishing, well, what are you looking for? Financial stability, or looking to have a, building income on just the podcast only and monetizing that, or, whatever it might be. Then you have to think about, what am I doing that's contributing to walking down that path and towards that goal?
One of the things that I think about a lot is I try to put myself a year out from where I am today. And I ask myself a question: what I'm doing right now and what I'm prioritizing right now, in 1 year, am I going to regret that in terms of what my goals and my plans and my objectives are? And in my research of really you're trying to get inside the heads of very successful people, I think what differentiates them from most is the time horizon with which they act and make decisions. They think about the impact of what they're doing today, a year from now, 5 years from now, because they clearly understand their goals. They're written down, they're communicated to others. It's their driving force for their sense of purpose. And I think that, very much aligns to what you just described there.
Yeah, indecision is definitely, I think, one of the things that can really hang everybody up. And I get it. Sometimes if it's an important decision, you don't want to make the wrong decision. But at the same time, indecision and not making any decision is basically making a decision to do nothing or to not do the right thing either. And I think people also forget, unless it's something really, really crucial, we all have second chances. You can learn also from making the wrong decision and say, okay, that wasn't right, but you know what? That didn't destroy me. I can try something else. And it's often just like trying and doing things that are not perfect. Like I want to, start doing podcasts, and being a Virgo, perfectionism is always on my plate. And that actually stops me from doing a lot of things if I look back on that, right? Because I don't have the perfect equipment, because I don't have the perfect background. As you can see, I definitely don't have the perfect background. And if you think about that forever and wait until everything's perfect, it can be, next thing you know, it's like 3 years. And because I have this stupid thing that I do where I don't turn off my alarms, on my calendar if I haven't done them. And every once in a while I look back at them and I'm like, wow, it's been 4 years that I thought I was going to do this and I haven't. And it's a kind of a, kick in the butt for myself to say, wow, okay, let's, if this was important, let's get to it. And if not, then let's just dismiss it so it's not hanging over my head all the
Yeah.
time. But it's a good
Yes.
reminder sometimes just you got to do either something or the decision gets made for you anyway.
No doubt. No doubt. I think there's a couple folks that I think about based off of what you just described. So, Mark Zuckerberg, well known for saying, "Hey, let's move fast and break stuff," right? Because there's no better way to learn than to start trying and start making mistakes. Bezos, one of the most famous letters that he wrote to shareholders as Amazon CEO was just the importance of making decisions with not all the information, knowing that you're not going to have everything available to you. And it's okay to make decisions when you've got 60% or 70% of the information, and just be prepared to move fast and pivot as soon as something appears to go sideways. But yeah, no, I love it. I love it.
Yeah, those are great concepts. And I forget where it was too that I read about, companies that have a culture of allowance for failure, basically to say, it's okay to fail this percentage of the time. And the idea behind that being, if you're not failing every once in a while, you're also not acting on all of your potential ideas. And could be missing out on some really great ones. And I think companies that can, move quickly, be pivotal, and find space for people to say, hey, you know what, every once in a while, this didn't work out, but we gave it a shot, but we did learn from this. Here's what we learned, and here's how next time we can make this better.
Read in the Wall Street Journal probably like 3 or 4 weeks ago, they were doing a profile on just how safe it is to fly these days. And, they look back at like 30, 40 years ago, flying was not nearly as safe as it is today. And they pinpointed the reason, because the FAA and the airlines came together and they agreed to like permit this culture of making mistakes and like pointing things out that were going wrong. And what they discovered is that like people were seeing things that was like bad, or maybe they were doing something that wasn't leading to like the most safe outcome, and they were afraid to admit it. And they changed the whole culture within the FAA and these airline manufacturers and airlines. And that culture of like, it's okay to admit to a mistake, it's okay to say something is wrong, has actually dramatically increased the safety of air travel. And they like attribute it to that change of culture.
That's great. Yeah, because we obviously all make mistakes, and making people fear doing anything wrong guarantee means somebody's hiding something, right? You can't have a bunch of people with nobody doing anything wrong. So I think the more, like you're right, the more you embrace that, but learn from it. It's not just like, oh, I'm going to go out and make mistakes all the time and mess around, but it's okay. What do we learn from this? And that's something I also it's one of my things to myself that I promised to do in 24, which is be brave enough to do things that I don't think are perfect, and put out things that I don't think are perfect, which I'm sure I do anyway. But it's more about in my head fearing, okay, if it's not perfect, I'm not ready to have everybody see it yet. But how are you going to learn if you don't just start somewhere, right?
Love it. Love it. I want to go back to a comment that you made earlier. We were kind of talking a little bit about hypnotherapy, anxiety, anger, rage, right? We see a lot of that in American culture today, driving motivational force for many people, which is fear and in loss aversion, right? And what I want to kind of get a sense of is like, as you think about the work that you do in hypnotherapy and in your work as an advisor and a mentor for different folks, like how do you use that process to pull people out of like this mindset of victimhood? We find so many people feeling like victims. How do we help folks get around that? And how have you done that with some of your hypnotherapy practice?
So in this specific hypnotherapy practice, it's about going back and identifying what the sources of those are. And obviously, I can't share anything personal, but as I've worked with people, I mean, first of all, hypnotherapy. When people talk about, well, what is it? It's not like the stage hypnotherapy where you make people fall asleep and they start doing funny things. This is really about it's like basically like a guided meditation, is what I tell people. So they're awake. They're just in a state of, meditative state where sometimes, you find yourself driving down the highway and you're not sure how you got from point A to point B because you were thinking and deep in your head about something, but
Sure.
suddenly, like, oh, you're home. You're like, how did I get to this exit? That's kind of a meditative state where you're really kind of deep in thought and just in your head. But obviously, you're still clear-headed enough to have driven a vehicle from point A to point B without, anything catastrophic happening.
Hmm.
So it's about having people get into that space where they start seeing things and recalling through this kind of guided meditation, where I kind of talk through them and have them come up with pictures in their head of what are the things that are driving that particular fear, and then really aim to resolve that and say, because our brains really are trying to just keep us alive, right? That's
Sure.
what our brain's job is to do. And a lot of
Hmm.
times when they, talk, there's all this talk a lot of times about childhood trauma and things
Right.
like that. And really what happens is your brain is in a space where it says, okay, wow, we didn't like that. This caused bad things. Let's avoid that. And it ends up being stuck in this programming that no longer applies in your adulthood, right? Or in whatever
Mm-hmm.
situation you are in now. So it's about kind of telling your brain, okay, in its subconscious state, let's do something else, because we understand you're trying to keep me safe, appreciate it, but this is no longer applicable. Let's do something else with this.
Hmm.
Or let it go, or whatever it might be, depending on the specific issue that we're trying to address. There's different ways to kind of transform that thought, but it's really just, I call it like a reprogramming, hitting the reset button and saying, hey, let's do something else instead. So, I mean, there's all kinds of things where people can talk about things and talk through things. But that's where I feel like, and I've never been a therapist in that way, so I can't say, I'm not going to claim to be an expert in talk therapy, but I have seen a lot of people go through that. And for me, I mean, I think you can talk about a lot of things, but you're really addressing a lot of conscious behavior. And while that can, definitely be very helpful, for me personally, from what I've seen and what I've been through myself, I feel like the subconscious healing is just faster and more powerful, because it really, it's a way for you to, I tell people it's a way for me to help you have a conversation with yourself. Your brain's always trying to tell you things, right? Your
Hmm.
subconscious is trying to tell you things, and you may just not hear that message or know what that message is. And that message is a lot of things that sometimes keeps people up at night. So one of the interesting things that my clients have told me is that they sleep through the night after they've had a session with me. It's the first time in a long time that they've been able to sleep through the night. And I think that's because your subconscious is at peace, like, okay, you heard me. You finally heard me. We may have some little process to go through to go through that healing process, but if they feel heard, your inner subconscious feels heard. And that's why people always tell me that the night after they sleep really well.
Wow. I think everybody could use a little bit of a better night's sleep. I love that concept. And when I when I struggle to sleep, I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna, let me take some melatonin or let me take some Benadryl. All right. Yeah. I never really thought, it's like, if I just share like what's on my subconscious mind and I think about that, and I can actually reprogram my brain, which is basically, kind of what you're sharing here. That's fascinating that's possible. And obviously like the healing effect that can have. So thank you for sharing that. Appreciate it.
Thanks
How
for
about we
letting me
how about we
talk about it.
yeah, of course. How about we transition into some less serious stuff? Like that's super important, of course. But I know that you love to go to the racetrack and to race cars. I've got Steve McQueen's great character Michael Delaney behind me here, from the movie Le Mans. Obviously a great movie. And in that movie, Steve McQueen's character, he describes racing as life, and that anything that happens before or after is just waiting. My question for you, is he right?
I think when you're a race car driver, when I've seen some of the best race car drivers, I mean, it's just to be that good at anything, you have to make that a priority above so many things, no matter what kind of athlete you are. And race car drivers are, absolutely some of the, best endurance people out there with what they can do, the G forces they have to withstand, and the ability to react. When you see some of the training that they do with reaction time training, even neck training, to make sure their necks can withstand all the force that's going on, when they're whipping around in the race car. I mean, I think, people have multiple passions, but I think to be at, like, let's say a Formula One level, it's really got to be something that is a true passion that you put above a lot of things in life. And
Right. Yeah. And the way that you describe it made me think about race car drivers or athletes on the same level as like an NFL player, right? I mean, you were at the Super Bowl and you saw kind of there's obviously a big deal around that. Those are, some of the best athletes in the world. Race car drivers are athletes too.
Yeah, and it's all about the training. If you watch, let's say, the NFL, we just watched the Super Bowl, right? I mean, those are short bursts of performance that you have to call out on the spot at a very, specific time when, okay, it's ready, you got to go out and perform. And relative to the amount of training, obviously, that happens behind it, same with race car drivers as football players. That's all about, training and everything you're doing every day to prepare for that short burst of performance that you're going to be called on to do. And I think, that's always so interesting for me to watch in any sport. But I think racing is, I mean, I love being around it. I love the smell of fumes and hearing the noises and kind of the excitement of people. And I worked in pit reporting with IMSA for many years, and being there is very interesting because you're watching the teams and the crew and the owners, and while the drivers are in the car, or even while they're waiting, it's lots of moments of just waiting, or there's moments of joy, there's sadness, there's just so much emotion that goes on throughout the race for every team and everybody that participates in that. There's such, there's the race car driver, of course, but there's a whole team behind that driver as well that puts their heart and soul into that race.
Absolutely. And how do you get involved in racing? Like, are you like a weekend enthusiast? Do you do any like amateur stuff, or how do you get involved exactly? Because I know you're a big Porsche enthusiast.
I am. I have 3 Porsches,
Yeah,
and hoping I buy more.
of course.
I think I probably have to fix them first, fix one of them first. So I got into racing when I got my first Porsche. So I've always loved cars, and this is going to date me. So you know that I'm an old lady, but I'm loved Knight Rider. That was my first show with cars that I fell in love with. And I just, have always loved being around cars. And I was on a dragon boat racing team. And I know one of the future questions might be, what the heck is a dragon boat racing team?
Yeah, exactly.
So one of my teammates was a Canyon driver. And when I got my switch from my Nissan 300ZX to driving a Cayman to practice, he came up to me and said, "Hey, like your car, we have, a bunch of guys that go drive up in the canyons. Do you want to come with us?" And I was like, "Okay, sure. Sounds fun." And then next thing you know, they're like, "Oh, we're going to go to the track because we go every, couple of months or something. Do you want to come?" And of course, I'm just like, "Okay, sounds fun."
Mhm.
And that's how I, got started just doing track days and things. I also did take some courses through my friend, very good friend Martina Kwan and her racing school, TK Racing School, right next to Willow Springs, and was in the middle of getting my racing license. So I don't know if I have, I would love to finish pursuing that soon, very, very soon. But, businesses and things take me so many places. There's so many things to do. So again, it's me needing to prioritize what do I want to do. But I've always loved being around it. How I started doing pit reporting through Pit Notes for IMSA is also a funny story. I have a lot of really funny stories, honestly. So I was given a media pass, and for at the Long Beach Grand Prix. Actually, this was probably, oh gosh, maybe 10, 11 years ago. And I ran into my old friend James McNeff, who, rest in peace, is no longer with us, but he saw me walking down the stairs and said, "Hey, who are you? What are you doing here?" And just started a conversation with me. And he says, "Well, I do, pit reporting with IMSA, travel around the country for the IMSA races. Do you want to check it out?" I'm like, "Well, okay. I don't know if I know what I'm doing, but I'm sure I can learn." That's always my attitude. Get in there first and then learn and pick it up later. And that's how, I ended up working with Pit Notes, doing pit reporting for IMSA over probably 8 years or so, and just love it. Love being in that space in pit lane and hanging out with the teams and seeing everything that goes on behind the scenes. And I know, like I said, the performance is just kind of that spurt of performance that the race car drivers do, but there's so much that happens leading up to that, and the whole team that supports the driver.
I love the analogy of the iceberg, where you see the tip of the iceberg, but underneath the surface there's much more of that iceberg, and it's hidden from view. And I think it's a great lesson in that, like, I look at that, at what you see in the iceberg is like the success, so like those short bursts of performance and everything that goes into that performance, the practice, the grit, the failure, the lessons, the adaptation, the team building, etc. All of that is below the surface. And most people don't see that, and they can't really appreciate it until you're actually there, right? And you kind of get that sense in pit lane, like the sweat that goes into making sure that those performances are like as predictable and safe and championship driven as possible. I think it's a very, very cool perspective.
And by the way, from my Trivial Pursuit days, one of my useless knowledge things about icebergs is that it's 1/9, I believe, of the iceberg is above the water, and
Right.
8/9 is below.
Great observation, right? Like, number one, you definitely have a lot of useful or useless knowledge in your head. I don't know. We'll let the audience determine which it is in terms of icebergs, but it is an excellent point in that, like, 8/9 of what goes into delivering a championship performance, most people don't see, right? It's the late nights, it's the early mornings, it's all that type of stuff, right? I do love a good game of Trivial Pursuit as well, right? So just kidding around with you there. All right. So good stuff. Oh, one of the questions I did want to ask. So if you were to get a racing license, what would that mean for you? What would that unlock exactly?
Just the ability to go out and do real competitions. I mean, track days are, depending on which track days you go to, there's lots of them, and they're organized, very differently, depending on how many people show up. There's a basic general set of rules that you follow, but racing is hey, you're out there, everybody's out there, everybody has the opportunity. There is no, these are the only passing places you can have. You can pass anywhere, do anything, and these are people that are really out and being very competitive. I mean, track days are definitely very competitive too, of course. Right. But a lot of times it's people out having a lot of fun, which is what I mainly am out doing.
Totally. I actually set it for my first track day in April, so I'm super excited about it. I picked up.
That should be fun. What are you driving?
An R8. I have a 2015 R8.
Nice.
And so I'll be taking that out on the track in April. I'm like a complete novice when it comes to like driving a machine like that. So I'm starting with like kind of the student program and getting some coaching and getting out on the track. And there's actually a pretty good community of R8 owners in the Indianapolis area. Um, and I'm trying to get like a few of the guys down there so we can just kind of all do it together. And I think over the summer there's going to be some stuff happening up around the speedway, which would be pretty cool. There's like some street racing, bring your cars in. So I'm starting to get into that community too as well, which is very exciting.
Just be careful. It's a very addictive activity, an expensive activity. So you
Yes.
might find yourself, if you end up getting addicted to the adrenaline and being out there, that you're going to find yourself out there a lot. Just giving you a warning.
Yeah.
Funny thing too about driving and doing track stuff. I've just got way too many thoughts in my head. I always describe it like it's like 50 hamsters in my head, all running on the wheel, all at the same time, looking for things to do. And, being on the track is one of the few times where I feel extremely peaceful because I have to pay attention because I don't want to die and I don't want to kill anybody or hurt anybody or, harm anybody's car or property or anything like that. So it forces me to shut down all the hamsters but one. And so for me, it's actually a very peaceful activity. And when I've mentioned that to some other drivers, they've, said the same thing. But if you have like a ADHD type of mind where you're constantly thinking about things that are, 3 hours from now, right? And not just what's in front of you. It's a very interesting experience just to be able to focus on precisely what's in front of you.
Yeah, I'm excited. Can't wait. I'll definitely follow up and let you know how it goes. And
Yeah, I would love to hear
if I
about
get
it.
to that one hamster mindset, I could use that for sure.
And the community is great usually
Yeah.
at the racetrack.
Oh yeah.
I've blown a tire before and people just come to your aid. Perfect strangers. I have no idea who they are. Everybody came by to help. I was actually at the track by myself one time because I was supposed to go with a bunch of friends and they all ended up not going and I went anyway. And I blew a tire and I mean like 6, 7 people came by to try to like help and do things. Because I didn't bring a whole bunch of tools with me. So
right.
But it all worked out.
Good. Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting into that community and just through Facebook, like I'm part of some R8 Huracan enthusiast community. Like everyone's super welcoming and trying to pull a group together for a trip to Indy coming up soon. So
fun. Check out the museum though.
Yeah, definitely. We'll check that out. No doubt.
Hey, this is Eric. I'm a sneakerhead and I love luxury watches. Timely Souls combines both passions. We help enthusiasts to tastefully pair the right sneaker and watch, be distinctive, have fun, and look good for one of 3 occasions: the big event, the business trip, or date night. Think about the opportunities when you merge the right color scheme, story, and design when you match the right sneaker and watch. That's what fuels my passion here at Timely Souls. Welcome to Timely Souls, where time meets style.
Let's talk a little bit about GrandPrix Originals. So I read recently that you all completed a new relationship with Gulf Oil. So congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Congrats. That's in conjunction with the US brand. And what does that mean for the business?
Well, so GrandPrix Originals, the brand, has been around for about 20 years. And started in Europe, in Germany, and it's a very, very well-known brand out there. They were never in the US before. And interestingly enough, what a lot of people probably don't know is that Gulf Oil International is a separate entity than Gulf Oil in the US. So while the brand had licensing everywhere else in the world, we did not have licensing in the US. So in the US, the company is called GrandPrix Originals USA. I was brought in by my partner, Jonathan Seeger, who had the original relationship with Marco Roof, one of the owners of GrandPrix Originals in Europe. And Jonathan and I were introduced at a Ferrari event at the Peterson Museum. It was the Enzo Ferrari Day. And by a mutual friend, Tom Stoller, and we just started talking and ended up starting the business and running with it. I just loved the product. I love the product line. And after, being here a couple of years, we were able to acquire licensing with Gulf USA. So, Gulf is such an iconic name in motorsports, right? I mean, you see this Steve McQueen back there and that, Gulf livery Porsche that he drove in the movie. So Gulf has been around for a long time, recognized by everybody. And we were lucky enough to have the licensing just before Rennsport, which is, the world's largest Porsche gathering. And that was at Laguna Seca Raceway. And it was just amazing. So many people came out, and it's something that I think gives our business a lot of credibility in the US because we're still relatively new. I mean, the products speak for themselves. If you look on our website, we have 5-star reviews and of people that love the quality of what we make. So there's a lot of replica type of things out there that are of course cheaper, but we're not I wouldn't say definitely at the most high priced out there, but we are also not, we're not trying to be a cheap product. We want to be a high quality product, but still be something reasonable for car enthusiasts and people who love motorsports to have access to. We're not a Louis Vuitton, but
Right.
we're not selling $15 t-shirts either, because we want to make something that people are proud to wear, that love wearing, that and that lasts. So the Gulf name I think is just amazing because and we've really loved working with them so far in the US. They've been great with us, and people just love the products. So
yeah, no, I love that story, and I think the Gulf brand is incredible. Obviously, like the heritage with Porsche and the movie and Steve McQueen, Michael Delaney, but just the color combination is crazy, right? And I've actually got behind me right above the Ferrari logo there. I've got a pair of Jordan 1s in the UNC colorway, right? So like the Carolina Tar Heels, obviously where Jordan went to college, that like baby blue, Tar Heel blue color is iconic in this sneaker colorway world. And it's actually a pretty close relative to the Gulf oil blue that in Delaney's, I think it was the 917 or 917 that he was driving. It's just an amazing color, and paired with like the orange, it pops. It's beautiful, and it like looks good on anything. Like you put it on anything, it's gonna look.
I feel like it's got a lot of subtlety to it and brightness at the same time. It's not like a in your face, like a neon color, but it's such an interesting pairing of colors that just works. It just looks good, on a car, on a shirt, on a shoe, anything. It's just a whoever came up with it is amazing.
Yeah, exactly. And when did GPO USA officially launch?
We launched in 2020, right as the pandemic started. We decided, hey, let's just start a company and sell stuff. But what I love about the company too is that all three of us are real car enthusiasts. Jonathan Seeger's been working with, he has his own company working with kind of classic motor parts for Porsches. And, Marco's been working with race teams, and he loves Mustangs. Of course, in Europe, they like American cars, right? And, I just think we're not just here because we are making shirts and jackets and shoes and bags. We're all car enthusiasts. We're out in the community, every day, every week. And we live the motorsports life. And that's what I really love about our partnership and we love when we see people and friends that wear our stuff and love it and are proudly wearing it out at events, and people getting excited to come by and say, I love this stuff. It's like gives me so much classic car racing nostalgia, or that Steve McQueen nostalgia. we really love it.
The car enthusiast community in general is really strong. I think Porsche is probably the strongest within the community. And to have a brand and a partnership with a company like Gulf Oil to bring to that community, it's a winning idea.
Thank you.
I also read that I think you're in like everyday carry group, marksman group, so you're also kind of into that trade as well, right?
So my other company, or one of my other companies, there's just too many, it's called ZK Performance, and that's started with my very close friend of mine, Mike Kojima, who, if you're in the motorsports world, you'll know Mike is one of the OG engineers in the racing world. We were actually just at the Fujiwara Tofu Cafe this weekend, and people all the time still walk up to him and like, "Hey, you're Mike Kojima. Love your content," because he knows cars, and he's not about hype or anything, and he knows his stuff. But so I am a firearms instructor as well. That's just for me. I know in California, I'm a firearms instructor. How does that happen?
Right.
Personally for me, and I don't pretend to be an expert and to teach at the highest levels. That's not me. I got into it because it's something that I thought was important for me. I started off not wanting to be afraid of guns, right? And I just thought, okay, I'm going to go learn about them, learn what this is all about. And I took a class at LX firing range near me, and they're like, "Wow, you're really good. Is this really your first lesson?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm just learning for the first time here." And then, Mike eventually helped me build a custom AR, and I have a Glock 19 as well, and a PPQ. So those, and I just, really, I got a lot of questions. Let's just say that, I have friends on the left, friends on the right. I'm the kind of person that talks to everybody, and, I don't push people out of my life because they believe one thing or another. I like to keep conversations open. And I started seeing that, throughout, sometimes, you see people arguing about stuff on the internet, right? Like in social media, just arguing about guns. It's obviously a topic that, people have different feelings about. But for me, I've always worked with just beginners, and especially women. There's a, program where, through the NRA, where we teach, beginner women's classes. And for me, this is my way of having, outreach, whatever it is you believe in. I just am open. If you want to have a real conversation with me about why I, why I own a gun, you can have a real conversation with me. And I find that because I'm not, like a really in your face person about it, I have a lot of people on, the left who were not into guns actually come and ask me. They said, "Okay, you don't seem like, the really out there type of gun person. Can we ask you some questions?" And so I always felt like it was just, I don't know, just a more gentle way to approach people, and provide some education when people come and ask me. I don't try to go out and tell people things they don't want to hear, but if you really want to know, I'm here, and I'm open to, answer some questions. And I've, have a lot of women, especially, who have taken classes with me because they just feel like it's a much more gentle approach, I guess. And so that's my space. That's my space. Like I said, I'm not an expert. I'm not here to teach you like how to, be the best out there. I am more about, hey, I'd like to kind of be a bridge of helping people who are beginners, or maybe have some questions about why would I choose guns as a female, as a Californian, whatever the case might be. So that's kind of how I got started, and why I got a certification to be an instructor, to enable me to be able to have those kind of open conversations with people and teach them if they want to.
It's fascinating. Yeah, I mean, you really have an incredible background, super diverse background that could carry on a conversation for hours and hours and hours. But let's begin to kind of transition into kind of the final couple points that we'll make. You talk a little bit about your firearms passion, obviously motorsports passion. There's a huge connection between exotics and everyday carry. There's also a huge connection between exotics and luxury cars and racing and watches, right? I mean, in the Le Mans movie, obviously there's the iconic Tag Heuer, or I think it may have just been the tag in the movie, Tag Monaco. And I think, the entire design of that Tag Monaco today continues to be super popular and incorporates those Gulf blue, Gulf orange colors, a really popular watch silhouette there. Do you see a lot of guys and gals out on the motorsports ring that are also into watches as well and stuff like that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's a big overlap, in the Venn diagram between watches, cars, fast times, fast cars.
Yeah, exactly. I'm still learning how to use the tachometer on my Speedmaster. Haven't mastered that yet, but and obviously with like GrandPrix Originals, you've got sneakers, right? So like you're trying to kind of draw in the motorsports passion and the sneakers, and you've got sneakers specifically designed for racing, right? So you're kind of bringing that connection together.
Yeah, I would say, it's they're driving shoes is what we call them. Obviously, if it's a regulated race that requires fireproof suits and shoes, we don't offer that, but they're
Right.
meant for your casual everyday driving, walking, even some track driving, unless when you don't need fireproof equipment, but we have a rolled heel that's great for heel toe. It's full leather, right? So our shoes are made in Europe, and that's I try to answer these questions for people a lot. And when you advertise on social media, you always get people every once in a while that comment things. And honestly, I don't mind. I don't mind if people want to troll us or say like, oh, these are so expensive or whatever. For me, it just gives me the opportunity to tell them like, hey, we're 100% leather. We make our shoes in Italy and in Portugal in small batches in factories. They're handmade. The quality is there of what we're making, and we're making it with that vintage. A lot of our shoes have that vintage patina, and I think most people understand it. 99% of people get that, and some people are like, "Hey, are these shoes dirty?" It's like, okay, you can see that the soles are perfectly clean, right? But we are trying to recreate that, vintage patina, that slightly worn in kind of look. The same way I guess people like jeans with holes in them. Yeah. My mom doesn't. She's like, we didn't immigrate to America so that like a homeless person. So I can't wear shirts or pants with holes in them around my mom.
One of my youngest daughter, who's 8, she has a pair of jeans, and literally half of the jean is like ripped.
Oh yes, it's missing, right, in the front.
It's not even there. Yeah, it's like they charge the cost of a full pair of jeans, but it's only half of the material, literally.
But it costs money to rip it off.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, totally. No, I love it. I love the connection between different passions, and that's kind of what we're doing here at Timely Souls as well. And one of the pairings that we did over this summer was we had the Tag Heuer Monaco. We paired that with one of the GPO sneakers out of Europe. I've got the Michael Delaney's kind of like back here, and that was one of the coolest pairings that I think we've done, and it actually kind of it got me more into the motorsports world. I actually watched Le Mans for the first time as I was pulling that pairing together. I was like, I should probably watch the movie so that I kind of know what's going on. And I actually, and
that's impressive, actually, because we have a lot of people. We have a whole line of Golf Michael Delaney products, and a lot of people come up and ask us at the booth, "Who's Michael Delaney?" And then I kind of, go into the explanation. They're like, oh yeah, that's right. And a lot of people, especially in the car world, remember that. But if you're not a car person, you probably haven't seen that movie, and you would have no idea who Michael Delaney is. But it's an interesting way for us to have a conversation starter and tell the story and talk
Right.
about the livery and the history behind it, and the infamous movies that that are out there. So
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very cool movie. I'm glad I watched it, and I think it really allowed me to tell the story, the connection between the GPO racing shoe and the Tag Heuer Monaco, in just a way that there would have been no way I could have told the story like I did without that background and understanding. And I'm a huge sneakerhead personally. You can kind of see behind me. I've got a little bit
a
of
great
an
collection.
addiction.
I love it. I love it.
And I also collect luxury watches, right? So I have a ton of Jordans, a ton of New Balance, a ton of Yeezys, got so many different colorways. And as I started to get into like the luxury watch world, probably, a few years ago, I started to see like this connection, not only between the colors of a sneaker and a watch, but I also, kind of in the instance of, the GPO racing sneaker and the Tag Heuer Monaco, like there's a whole story that I can tell when I pair the right shoe and the right watch. And that's really kind of what inspired Timely Souls and kind of what we're doing here. And obviously the podcast Time Eats Style is all about that. So, when you think about, pairing, one of your racing sneakers with a watch.
Well, we do have a Gulf blue and orange racing sneaker.
There you
So
go.
our racing sneaker, we call them the racing sneaker. We have two styles. There's a GrandPrix sneaker and there's a racing sneaker.
Okay.
And I feel like you're going to be a candidate for the racing sneaker. It's in Gulf blue and orange, and it has a checkerboard for the checkered flag on the back of the heel. So that's going to be a fun one for you.
Coming up in April, my first trip to the track. I'll look like a veteran if I show up in those. Like they'll be like, "Who is this guy?"
It's going to make you go faster too.
Right.
Some people tell us that it adds a little
right?
horsepower. Some people tell us it adds a little downforce.
Exactly.
We cannot either deny or confirm those claims, but
Right.
we've had people tell us that they drive better and faster in those.
Well, yeah, I know you kind of did a little dating of yourself back with the Knight Rider reference. I'll date myself as well, right? Like I was a kid growing up with like in the Reebok pump era, right? And when you pump those sneakers, you could jump a little bit higher. Well, it's been a pleasure to connect with you and have you share your story, Jeany. I really appreciate it. Congratulations on just really like the diverse background and all the success. Congrats on being a big part about bringing GPO to the U.S. and the partnership with Gulf, and excited to continue to watch the brand and see where you all go.
Yes, we've got lots of really exciting things coming up in 24 that we can't talk about yet, but you will for sure see us out there in the motorsports market with some of these new things. And Eric, thank you so much for having me on, for the great conversation, and love all the shoes you got back there. I feel like we need to help you add to your collection a little bit.
I think so. Hey, I'm never going to turn down an invitation to add to my shoe collection. So you got me there, Jeany.
Sounds great.
All right. Thanks, Jeany. Appreciate you joining.
Thank you. Take care.
Where time meets style.